The battle had been going on for 16 hours without pause. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like dying stars, each one marking another ship that would never return home. The Velkari Empire's Fourth Fleet hung in defensive formation around the mining colony of Theta 7, their silver hulls scarred and burning. Across the void, the Draven Collective's warships pushed forward in their usual brutal style, trading losses for inches of space. High Marshal Vector watched the battle displays from his command ship with tired eyes. 300 years. 300 years of this endless war, and for what? The mineral deposits on Theta 7 would last maybe another decade before running dry. Just like everything else in this cursed conflict, they were fighting over scraps while their civilizations crumbled. Marshal, the left flank is collapsing, his tactical officer reported. The young Velkari's voice stayed steady despite the fear in his eyes. Should we commit the reserves? Vector's 4 fingers drummed against his command chair. Commit the reserves and maybe hold for another day. Or save them and lose Theta 7, but keep his fleet alive for the next battle. There was always a next battle. Pull back to secondary positions, he ordered. We cannot win this one. The words tasted like poison. In his youth, Vector would have charged forward, would have believed in honor and glory and the righteousness of the Velkari cause. Now he just felt old and tired. His people were dying for rocks and ice, and there was no end in sight. The fleet began its retreat, executing the maneuver with practiced efficiency. Too much practice. They had done this same dance 1,000 times across 100 worlds. Win a little, lose a little, and the war ground on. Back at the capital world of Velkara Prime, Ambassador Lyra descended into the archives of ancient history. The old building smelled of dust and forgotten things. Most of her colleagues thought she was wasting her time down here, searching through records from before the war began. But Lyra had nothing else left to try. Every diplomatic effort had failed. Every peace proposal had been rejected. The Draven wanted total victory, and the Velkari were too proud to surrender. So she looked to the past, hoping to find something, anything that might help. The old archivist, a bent and ancient Velkari named Thon, guided her through rows of data crystals. What are you searching for today, Ambassador? I do not know, Lyra admitted. Something we have forgotten. Something that might change everything. Thon made a sound that might have been a laugh. The young always think the old must have hidden wisdom somewhere. Sometimes we were just as lost as you are now. But he helped her search anyway because there was nothing else to do. They pulled crystals at random, scanning through trade records and exploration logs from the Golden Age before the war. Most of it was useless. Ship manifests, resource surveys, planetary classifications. Then Lyra found something strange. Thon, what is a quarantine zone? She pointed at the entry on her display. This entire sector was marked as forbidden. No explanation, just warnings to stay away. The old archivist leaned close, his eyes widening. I remember hearing stories when I was young. My grandfather told me about a species that vanished. They came from a world the scouts called a death world, a planet so dangerous that simply living there made them stronger than anyone else. A death world? Lyra had heard the term in children's stories. Mythical places where gravity crushed bones and the air burned lungs and the creatures hunted each other with vicious intelligence. That cannot be real. The records say it was. Thon pulled up older files, his hands shaking slightly. They called themselves humans. From a planet named Earth. They explored the nearby sectors for a few decades, traded peacefully, then vanished completely. Some said a plague killed them. Others said they found something in deep space and never came back. But look, here are the coordinates of their home system. Lyra stared at the data. Real coordinates. Real survey information. Not a myth at all, but history that had been forgotten during centuries of war. If they were real, she said slowly. If they survived whatever made them disappear, then maybe they could help. Thon finished her thought. Or maybe they died out 500 years ago and you will be chasing ghosts. Lyra copied the data onto a crystal and headed straight for the War Council chambers. She did not care if they laughed at her. She had to try. The War Council was not in session, but she found High Marshal Vector reviewing casualty reports in his office. The old soldier looked like he had aged 10 years in the last week. Ambassador Lyra. He greeted her without enthusiasm. If you are here to tell me we should surrender to the Draven, save your breath. I have heard it before. I am not here to talk about surrender. She placed the data crystal on his desk. I am here to talk about myths. That got his attention. Vector played the crystal, scanning through the ancient records with growing interest. When he finished, he sat back and studied her with those tired eyes. You want to send a transmission into empty space, hoping that a species we have not heard from in 5 centuries might answer? Yes, you realize this is insane? Yes? Vector was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Why not? We have tried everything else. We are losing this war, Lyra. Slowly, painfully, but we are losing. The Draven have more ships, more worlds, more soldiers. In another decade, maybe 2, they will stand on Velkara Prime and plant their banner in our capital. So yes, let us send your message. Let us ask the myths for help. He authorized the transmission himself. They sent it toward the coordinates in the old records. A simple distress call explaining the war and requesting aid. Lyra did not really expect an answer, but she had to try. Across the galaxy in the Draven Collective's command center, Archon Krell studied the strategic maps with satisfaction. The Velkari were breaking. Every battle cost them more than they could replace. Every retreat left another world defenseless. Soon, very soon, the Collective would achieve total victory. Gather the Grand Fleet, he ordered his commanders. It is time to end this. We will strike at their core worlds and crush them in one final assault. His commanders saluted and began preparations. The largest military force in Draven history would launch within the month. Nothing could stop them now. Far beyond the mapped sectors in a region of space that had been empty for 500 years, alarms began to sound. Deep space monitoring stations detected the Velkari transmission and analyzed it. The message was routed through quantum networks to Earth, where it arrived at the office of Admiral Daywan. He read the message 3 times, then called his senior staff. They are fighting again, he said quietly, killing each other over the same territories they fought over when we left. We knew this would happen eventually. Should we respond? Asked Commander Jinho. Admiral Daywan looked out at the stars beyond his window. Humanity had retreated from the galaxy after the plague nearly destroyed them. They had recovered, grown stronger, and watched from a distance. They had hoped the other species would learn peace. But hope was not enough. Yes, he said finally. Prepare the fleet. It is time they learned that humans were never a myth. We are going to end their war. The orders went out across human space. Ships that had not left their systems in centuries began powering up their engines. Soldiers who had only trained for hypothetical conflicts prepared for real battle. Earth and her colonies mobilized for the first time in 500 years. The galaxy was about to remember why Deathworld species were feared. The sensors picked them up 3 days before they arrived. Unknown contacts coming from the direction of empty space, moving faster than any ship in Velkari records. High Marshal Vector stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the displays with a mix of hope and disbelief. Are we certain they are not Draven? He asked for the 3rd time. Positive, Marshal, his sensor officer replied. The energy signatures are completely unknown. These are not Draven ships. They are not any ships in our database. Ambassador Lyra gripped the railing beside him, her breathing quick and shallow. It worked. They came. The humans actually came. Vector wanted to believe her, but 500 years was a long time. Whatever was coming toward them might not be friendly. Might not even be the same species anymore. Evolution and time changed everything. Open all communication channels, he ordered. Let us see who answered our call. The reply came faster than expected, broadcast on frequencies that their systems barely recognized. Then a voice spoke in perfect Velkari language, though the accent was strange and unfamiliar. This is Admiral Daywan of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help. The bridge went completely silent. Every officer stared at the communication display like it might vanish if they looked away. Humans. Real humans. Not a myth. Not a legend. Real. This is High Marshal Vector of the Velkari Empire, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. We are honored by your response. But I must ask, where have your people been for 5 centuries? There was a pause. Then Admiral Daywan spoke again, and this time Vector could hear the sadness in his voice. We went home to die, the human said simply. A plague struck Earth and our colonies. We barely survived. It took us centuries to recover. And when we finally looked outward again, we saw that the galaxy was still fighting, still killing each other. We had hoped you would find peace. We were wrong, so you came to stop us. We came to offer you a choice, Admiral Daewon corrected. End your war or we will end it for you. We will not stand by and watch civilizations destroy themselves when we can prevent it. Vector bristled at the tone. Who were these humans to make demands? The Velkari had fought this war for 300 years without interference from anyone. And if we refuse your offer? Then you will learn why Earth is called a death world. The reply came back. And you will understand why we left the galaxy alone. We did not want you to fear us. But if fear is what it takes to stop this madness, then so be it. Before Vector could respond, new alarms blared across the bridge. Draven ships, an entire battle fleet, dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly between the Velkari position and the approaching human vessels. Archon Krell had moved up his timeline, probably spooked by the sensor readings of unknown contacts. The Draven commander broadcast on all frequencies, his voice full of arrogance. Unknown vessels, you have entered Draven space during wartime. Identify yourselves or be destroyed. Vector watched his displays, expecting the humans to respond with threats or warnings. Instead, the human ship simply adjusted course and accelerated. Straight toward the Draven fleet. No hesitation. No negotiation. Just action. Are they insane? His tactical officer whispered. The Draven have 40 warships. The humans only have 12. Wait, Ambassador Lyra pointed at the sensor readings. Look at their acceleration. Nothing should be able to move that fast. The gravity forces would kill the crew. She was right. The human ships were pulling maneuvers that should have been impossible. Turns that would have crushed a Velkari or Draven crew, speeds that exceeded every known safety limit. And they were not just surviving it. They were doing it easily. The Draven opened fire first, filling space with energy weapons and missiles. Standard tactics, overwhelming firepower meant to destroy enemies through sheer volume. But the human ships danced through the barrage like they were playing a game. Spinning, diving, weaving between shots that should have hit them 10 times over. Then the humans returned fire. Their weapons were different. Smaller, more focused, but incredibly precise. Each shot found its target. Draven shields collapsed under concentrated beams that seemed to cut through energy barriers like they were not even there. One Draven cruiser exploded. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. They are targeting weak points, the tactical officer said in amazement. How are they finding them so fast? It should take minutes of scanning to locate shield vulnerabilities. Maybe they do not need to scan. Vector muttered. Maybe they just know. The battle was not even close. The Draven fought with their usual brutal efficiency, but it meant nothing against an enemy they could not hit. Human ships moved like living things, predicting and avoiding every attack. When they struck back, it was surgical and devastating. Within 20 minutes, half the Draven fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining Draven ships tried to retreat, but the humans were faster. They chased down fleeing vessels and eliminated them one by one. Vector watched in horrified fascination. He had fought the Draven for decades. He knew their tactics, their strengths, their stubborn refusal to surrender. And here they were, running away in panic from an enemy they had outnumbered 4-1. When the last Draven ship was destroyed, the human fleet regrouped and continued toward the Velkari position at a more leisurely pace. Admiral Daewon opened communications again. We did not want to demonstrate force, he said, but the Draven gave us no choice. High Marshal Vector, we are approaching your position. We request permission to send a diplomatic shuttle. It is time we talked face to face. Vector looked at Ambassador Lyra. She nodded eagerly. What choice did they have? These humans had just casually destroyed a Draven battle fleet. If they wanted to destroy the Velkari too, they could do it easily. Permission granted, Vector said. We will receive your delegation in 1 hour. The hour passed in tense preparation. Vector ordered his best honor guard assembled, then changed his mind and dismissed them. No point in pretending they could stop humans if the meeting went badly. Lyra prepared diplomatic protocols, then threw them out. Nothing in their history prepared them for this. When the human shuttle docked, Vector and Lyra waited in the main airlock with a minimal escort. The door opened and humans walked through. They looked strange. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Bipedal like Velkari, but different in 1,000 subtle ways. They moved with an odd grace like predators stalking prey even when just walking. Their eyes scanned everything, missing nothing. And there was something in their bearing that spoke of confidence earned through hardship. Admiral Daewon stepped forward. He was tall by human standards, with dark hair and darker eyes that held centuries of weight despite his relatively young appearance. He wore a simple uniform, dark blue with minimal decoration. Behind him came 4 others, a woman with sharp features and scars on her hands, a younger man who moved like a coiled spring, an older man with calculating eyes, and another woman with kind eyes who carried a medical scanner. High Marshal Vector. Admiral Dewan bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Ambassador Lyra, thank you for receiving us. I am Admiral Dewan. This is Captain Hana, Lieutenant Tae Yang, Commander Jin Ho, and Dr. Yuna. Each human nodded in turn. Vector found himself staring at Captain Hana's scars. They were extensive, covering her arms and disappearing under her uniform. Injuries that should have killed or crippled. Yet she moved without any sign of weakness. Welcome to our ship, Vector managed. I must admit we did not expect such a dramatic introduction to your capabilities. The Draven forced our hand, Admiral Dewan said. We would have preferred a peaceful first meeting. But this war has gone on too long. Too many have died. It ends now. You speak as if you have authority here. Vector could not help the edge in his voice. This is not your war. No, Dr. Yuna stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. But we are making it our responsibility. Because if we do not, you will all die. The Draven are gathering their full strength for a final assault. We know this because we have been watching the galaxy for 5 centuries. We see everything. Commander Jinho produced a data device. We intercepted Draven military communications. Archon Krell is assembling the Grand Fleet. 3,000 warships. They will launch in 2 weeks and strike at your core worlds. Even with your full military, you cannot stop them. The numbers hit Vector like a physical blow. 3,000 ships. It was true, the Valkyrie could not win that fight. They would lose. Their civilization would end. Then we are already dead, he said quietly. No, Admiral Dewan shook his head. We are here. And we are offering you a chance. Work with us, fight alongside us. And when the war ends, you will make peace with the Draven. Real peace, not a truce waiting to break. We will mediate. We will ensure fairness. But the killing stops. And if the Draven refuse? Captain Hana smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then we show them what happens when Deathworld species stop being polite. General Thane did not believe in humans until he saw one survive a grenade blast at close range. He had been leading a defensive operation on the industrial world of Kale 4 when the human ground forces arrived to reinforce his position. The Draven had been pushing hard, throwing wave after wave of soldiers against the factory complex that controlled the planet's main power grid. Captain Hana led the human contingent, a force of only 50 soldiers compared to Thane's 300 Valkyrie defenders. He had protested their small numbers, but Captain Hana just smiled and said 50 would be enough. The attack came at dawn. Draven shock troops, hundreds of them, charging across open ground with the kind of reckless courage that came from believing they were already winning. Thane's soldiers opened fire, cutting down the first wave, but there were always more. Always. Then the humans joined the fight, and everything changed. They did not hold positions like Valkyrie soldiers. They moved constantly, running between cover points with impossible speed. When they fired their weapons, enemies died. No wasted shots, no panic. Just cold efficiency. A Draven soldier threw a grenade that landed directly between 2 human soldiers. Thane shouted a warning, but it was too late. The explosion should have killed them both. Instead, both humans were thrown backward by the blast, rolled to their feet, and kept fighting. Their armor was scorched and dented, but they moved like nothing had happened. One of them was bleeding from a dozen small wounds, but he just wiped the blood from his face and kept shooting. How? Thane whispered. His own soldiers would have been killed by such a blast, or at least badly wounded and unable to continue. Dr. Yuna, who was observing from the command post, heard his question. Humans evolved on a world where survival meant being tougher than everything trying to kill us. Our bones are denser. Our muscles are stronger. Our organs can take more damage. What would kill you might only wound us. That is not natural, Thane said. No, Dr. Yuna agreed. It is evolution. Nature is not kind, General. It is brutal. And Earth was more brutal than most. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Draven kept coming, kept pushing, kept dying. But slowly, inevitably, they began to break. Not because of the Valkyrie defenders, though Thane's soldiers fought well. but because of the humans. Because every time the Draven thought they had an advantage, humans would appear in impossible places and turn the tide. They climbed walls that were supposed to be too high. They crossed ground that was supposed to be too exposed. They fought through injuries that should have stopped them. When the Draven finally retreated, Thane walked through the battlefield in a daze. His soldiers were exhausted, several wounded, 2 dead. The humans were sitting against walls, drinking water and checking their weapons. They looked tired but not broken, ready to fight again if needed. Captain Hana approached him, her armor still smoking from the grenade blast. "Your soldiers fought well, General. You should be proud. They are alive because of you," Thane said honestly. "We would have lost without your help." "Maybe," Captain Hana shrugged. "But we did not come here to replace you. We came to teach you. Your soldiers fight with discipline and honor. That is good. But you also need to fight with creativity, adaptability. That is what wins wars." Over the next week, the humans trained alongside Velkari forces across multiple worlds. They shared tactics that seemed insane at first but worked brilliantly in practice. They taught Velkari soldiers to think differently, to take calculated risks, to use terrain and timing instead of just firepower. In space, Lieutenant Taeyang became famous among both Velkari and Draven pilots. He flew a human fighter that looked too small and fragile to survive real combat, but he outflew entire squadrons alone. During a battle over the colony world of Persis 6, he engaged 12 Draven fighters simultaneously while protecting a damaged Velkari cruiser. The Velkari pilots watched in amazement as Taeyang's fighter spun and dove through space, pulling turns that should have knocked him unconscious from the G-forces. His targeting was perfect. Every shot found a vital system. Every dodge left Draven missiles chasing empty space. Within 8 minutes, 7 Draven fighters were destroyed, and the rest fled in panic. When Taeyang returned to the carrier, the Velkari pilots gathered around his ship in silent awe. He climbed out of the cockpit looking tired but satisfied, and was immediately surrounded by questions. "How do you turn so fast?" one pilot asked. "The acceleration should kill you." "Humans can take more G-force than most species," Taeyang explained. "Our hearts are stronger. Our blood vessels do not collapse as easily. We train in high-gravity environments to build tolerance. What feels like dying to you just feels uncomfortable to us." "That is not fair," another pilot muttered. Taeyang laughed. "War is not about fairness. It is about survival. And humans learned survival in a place that tried to kill us every day." Meanwhile, Commander Jin Ho worked in the shadows, gathering intelligence on Draven movements. He infiltrated enemy communications, hacked their computer systems, and even physically boarded a Draven command ship to steal data directly from their servers. The information he gathered was devastating. He presented his findings to Admiral Daewon and High Marshal Vekthor during a strategy meeting on the human flagship. The Draven are building something called the Void Hammer. Jinho displayed images of a massive space station under construction. It is a weapon designed to destabilize stars, causing them to go supernova. They plan to use it to destroy entire Velkari systems, turning the war into a genocide. The room went silent. Vekthor stared at the images with growing horror. "How many systems can it destroy?" "All of them," Jinho said flatly. "If they complete it and use it, they can eliminate every major Velkari world within a month. And the radiation will spread, making those sectors uninhabitable for centuries." "This is beyond war," Dr. Yuna said quietly. "This is extinction." Admiral Daewon studied the data with cold eyes. "When will it be operational?" 8 days, Jinho replied. "The weapon is nearly complete. Archon Krell plans to activate it as soon as the Grand Fleet launches its assault. He believes the Velkari will be too busy fighting the fleet to stop the weapon. Can we destroy it?" Vekthor asked desperately. "Yes," Admiral Daewon said. "But it will not be easy. The station is heavily defended. We will need to assault it directly, which means fighting through the Draven fleet while a strike team infiltrates the station and sabotages the weapon from inside." "A suicide mission," Vekthor said. "Maybe," Captain Hana spoke up. "But humans specialize in impossible missions. I will lead the strike team." "I will go with you," General Thane said immediately. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood straighter under their gaze. "You have taught my soldiers how humans fight. Now let me show you that Velkari can learn." Captain Hana studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You can come, but you follow my orders without question. Hesitation gets people killed. Understood. Thane agreed. Admiral Daewon turned to Vector. We need your fleet to help. This will be the largest battle of the war. The Draven will throw everything at us to protect that weapon. You will have our fleet, Vector promised. Every ship, every soldier. We cannot let them complete their genocide. Then we prepare for war, Admiral Daewon said. The Draven think they are facing a divided and weak enemy. They think humans are myths and Velkari are beaten. Let us show them how wrong they are. The combined human-Velkari fleet began gathering at a staging point near the border of Draven space. Thousands of soldiers trained together, learning to coordinate their different fighting styles. Pilots practiced joint maneuvers. Engineers shared technology. For the first time in 300 years, hope spread through the Velkari military. They were not alone anymore. They had allies who understood war on a level they were only beginning to grasp. Dr. Yuna worked tirelessly to help Velkari soldiers understand human psychology. She explained how humans actually got sharper under stress, how their bodies produced chemicals that increased focus and strength in combat. She showed them recordings from Earth, videos of human history filled with wars and conflicts and survival against impossible odds. You see us as strange, she told a group of Velkari officers. You wonder how we can laugh during battle, how we can be calm when facing death. It is because humans learned long ago that fear is not something to run from. It is fuel. We use it. We turn it into strength. That is what being from a death world means. It means we are friends with death because we have looked at it our whole history and refused to blink. The officers listened in fascinated horror. One asked the question that had been on all their minds. Are all humans like this? Your whole species? Dr. Yuna smiled. Every single one of us. From the moment we are born, we learn that life is hard and the universe does not care about us. So we learn to care about each other. We learn to fight together. And we learn that nothing, not nature, not fate, not death itself, gets to tell humans when to give up. In 8 days they would face the Draven Grand Fleet and the Void Hammer. 8 days to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of civilizations. Admiral Daewon stood in his ready room, looking at star charts and tactical projections. The odds were not good. The Draven had numbers and defensive positions, but humans had never let bad odds stop them before. The combined fleet assembled in the darkness between stars, a force unlike anything the galaxy had seen in living memory. Human ships with their sleek designs and impossible maneuverability mixed with Velkari vessels, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. High Marshal Vector stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays with emotions he could not quite name. Fear, hope, determination. All mixed together. Admiral Daewon's voice came through the communication channel, calm and steady. All ships, this is Fleet Command. In 2 hours, we jump to the Draven shipyard system. The enemy will have numerical superiority. They will have defensive positions. But they do not have what we have. They do not have unity. They do not have purpose. And they have never faced humans in full battle. Today we end this war. Today we show the galaxy what happens when people refuse to surrender to tyranny. All hands to battle stations. The fleet jumped as one, reality tearing open to allow thousands of ships to cross vast distances in an instant. When they emerged, they found exactly what Jinho's intelligence had predicted. The Draven Grand Fleet, 3,000 warships arrayed around the massive space station that housed the Void Hammer. It looked like a mechanical moon, covered in weapons and shields with energy readings that made sensor officers gasp. Archon Krell's face appeared on all communication channels, his features twisted with rage. You dare attack us here? In our own territory? You will all die for this insolence. The Velkari will burn, and these humans will learn what real power looks like. Talk is boring. Captain Hana muttered from the assault transport where she and her strike team waited. Can we skip to the part where we blow things up? Admiral Daewon gave the order. All ships engage. Strike team, launch when you have an opening. The battle began with a wall of fire. The Draven opened up with everything they had. Thousands of weapons lighting up space with deadly energy. The human Velkari fleet scattered into attack formations, moving too fast for the defensive fire to track effectively. Human ships led the charge, their superior speed and maneuverability drawing fire while Velkari heavy cruisers followed behind, using the chaos to close distance. Lieutenant Taeyang led his fighter squadron straight into the teeth of the Draven defenses. His voice came through the squadron channel, excited and focused. "All wings, follow my lead. We are going to punch a hole for the strike team. Stay tight and watch your spacing." His fighter dove between two Draven battleships, weapons blazing. The enemy tried to track him but could not match his movements. Behind him, the mixed squadron of human and Valkyrie pilots followed his path, exploiting the gaps he created. They destroyed gun emplacements, overloaded shields, and created havoc in the defensive lines. "Opening created," Taeyang reported. "Strike team, you have a window. Make it count." Captain Hana's transport shot forward, protected by a screen of fighters. Draven interceptors tried to stop them, but the escort ships cut them down with brutal efficiency. The transport approached the Void Hammer station, aimed for a maintenance hatch that Jin Ho had identified as the weakest point in the defenses. Inside the transport, General Thane checked his weapons for the 10th time. Around him, Valkyrie and human soldiers prepared for combat. The humans looked calm, almost relaxed. The Valkyrie were tense, nervous. They had trained for this, but training was different from reality. "First time infiltrating an enemy station?" one of the human soldiers asked Thane. The young woman had introduced herself as Corporal Minji. She was short by human standards, but moved like a predator. "Yes," Thane admitted. "We Valkyrie prefer open battle. Infiltration is not our strength." "You will do fine," Minji assured him. "Just remember what Captain Hana taught you. Keep moving. Trust your squad. And when things go wrong, because they always go wrong, adapt." The transport slammed into the maintenance hatch and magnetic clamps locked it in place. The hatch blew open with shaped charges, and the strike team poured through into the station. Draven security forces were waiting, but they expected a standard boarding action. They did not expect humans. Captain Hana was first through the breach, moving so fast she seemed to blur. She had 2 weapons, one in each hand, firing with perfect accuracy. 3 Draven guards went down before they could react. The rest of the team followed, spreading out and securing the immediate area with practiced efficiency. "Resistance is light here," Hana reported. They were not expecting a direct assault. "All teams, move to your objectives. We have maybe 20 minutes before they organize a real defense." The strike team split into 3 groups. Captain Hana led one team toward the station's main reactor. Corporal Minji led another toward the weapon control systems. General Thane, to his surprise, was put in charge of the 3rd team, tasked with securing their extraction point. As they moved through the station corridors, Thane found himself impressed by how the humans fought. They did not just react to threats. They anticipated them. When a Draven patrol appeared around a corner, the humans were already in position, already firing, already moving to the next position before return fire could find them. "How do you move so fast?" a Valkyrie soldier in Thane's team asked breathlessly. "Practice and reflexes," replied the human soldier next to him. "Also adrenaline. Humans produce a hormone that makes us faster and stronger when we are in danger. Your body is fighting you right now, telling you to slow down and be careful. Our bodies are telling us to go faster and hit harder." They reached the extraction point and began setting up defensive positions. That was when the real Draven response arrived. Hundreds of soldiers, heavily armed and armored, pushing toward their position with overwhelming force. "Hold this position," Thane ordered his team. No matter what. The Draven attacked in waves the way they always did. Brutal, direct, accepting losses to gain ground. But Thane had learned from watching humans. He did not just hold ground. He made the enemy pay for every step. His team moved between positions, creating crossfires and kill zones. They used the station's layout against the attackers, funneling them into narrow corridors where numbers meant nothing. A Valkyrie soldier next to Thane took a hit and went down. The human soldier immediately dragged him to cover and began treating the wound, still firing with one hand while working on the injury with the other. The wounded Valkyrie would have died. Instead, he was back in the fight within minutes, his wound sealed with human medical technology that was far beyond anything the Valkyrie had. Meanwhile, Captain Hana's team reached the main reactor. The room was enormous, filled with massive machinery that thrummed with barely contained power. Draven engineers were desperately trying to activate emergency protocols, but Hana's team cut them down without mercy. "Plant the charges," Hana ordered. "We have 10 minutes maximum." Her soldiers moved with trained precision, placing explosive devices on key reactor components. These were not normal bombs. They were designed to cause a cascade failure, turning the reactor into a slowly building explosion that would tear the station apart from the inside. "Charges set," reported one of her team. "Timer is running." "Good." Hana activated her communication device. "Minji, status?" "Weapon control is secured." Minji's voice came back, strained but steady. "But we have a problem. The Void Hammer is already charging. They started the sequence before we got here. If we just destroy the station, the weapon will fire automatically." Hana cursed in 3 languages. "Can you abort the sequence?" "Not from here. The controls are locked. Someone needs to get to the weapon core itself and manually shut it down. That was not part of the plan. The weapon core was in the center of the station, the most heavily defended location. Getting there would mean fighting through hundreds of Draven soldiers with no time for careful tactics." Admiral Daewon's voice cut into the channel. "Strike team, be advised, the fleet engagement is not going well. The Draven are using the station's weapons to support their ships. We cannot hold much longer. You need to complete the mission now." Captain Hana made the decision in seconds. "Minji, take your team and get to the weapon core. Shut it down manually. I will stay here and make sure the reactor charges are not disarmed." "Captain, that is suicide," Minji protested. "You will be trapped when the reactor goes critical." "Probably," Hana agreed. "But if that weapon fires, millions die. Our lives are a fair trade. Now move, Corporal." "That is an order." Outside the station, the space battle had become desperate. The Draven were taking massive losses, but they had so many ships that it did not matter. They traded 3 vessels for every one they destroyed, grinding down the human Velkari fleet through sheer weight of numbers. Lieutenant Tae Yang's fighter squadron was down to half strength. His ship was damaged, leaking atmosphere and flying on backup power, but he kept fighting, kept leading his remaining pilots in impossible attacks that disrupted enemy formations and bought precious seconds for the fleet. "All fighters. One more push," he transmitted. "We need to destroy those station weapons. They are tearing our capital ships apart. We are almost out of ammunition," one pilot reported. "Then we ram them," Tae Yang replied. "We do whatever it takes." Admiral Daewon watched the battle unfold from his command ship, making decisions that sent people to their deaths with every order. He hated it, but he did it anyway because the alternative was worse. Corporal Minji hit the first guard like a missile, her momentum carrying them both to the ground. She rolled to her feet and kept moving, firing as she went. Around her, the rest of her team engaged the elite Draven guards in brutal close combat. The humans were outnumbered, but they fought with a ferocity that made up for numbers. One human soldier took 3 hits that should have killed him. He stumbled, coughed blood, and kept fighting. Another lost her weapon and used her bare hands, snapping a Draven guard's weapon in half and beating him with the broken pieces. The Draven were trained and skilled, but they had never faced enemies who simply refused to die. Minji reached the control panel through sheer determination and luck. Her hands flew across the interface, reading alien symbols and making guesses based on Jinho's intelligence briefings. Behind her, her team was dying. She could hear them calling out, reporting injuries, and fighting to their last breath to give her time. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, work." The system responded, error messages flashing across the screen. The weapon was already in its final charge sequence. Stopping it completely was impossible, but maybe, just maybe, she could redirect it. Her fingers danced across the controls. If she could not stop the weapon from firing, she could at least aim it somewhere that did not matter. Somewhere empty. She found the targeting system and started overriding the coordinates, pointing the Void Hammer away from Velkari space and toward the empty regions beyond mapped territory. A Draven guard broke through her team's defense and charged at her. Minji did not turn around. She trusted her team. A human soldier intercepted the guard 3 steps from her position, tackling him in mid-charge. They fell together in a tangle of limbs, and the sound of breaking bones echoed through the chamber. "Got it," Minji announced, entering the final command. "Weapon redirected, firing in 60 seconds at empty space." "Then we need to get out of here," her second-in-command shouted over the sounds of combat. "Captain Hana set the reactor to blow in 5 minutes. Retreat," Minji ordered. Everyone pull back now. What remained of her team disengaged from the Draven guards and ran. Not all of them made it. Some fell in the final meters, cut down by enemy fire, but enough survived. Enough reached the extraction point where General Thane still held his position. "The weapon is redirected," Minji reported breathlessly, "but we need to evacuate immediately." This whole station is about to explode. Captain Hana? Thane asked. Still in the reactor room, Minji said quietly. She is not coming. In the reactor room, Captain Hana sat among her explosive charges and waited. Draven soldiers had tried to breach the room twice. Both times she had driven them back with carefully placed shots and sheer determination. Now they were trying a third time, cutting through the reinforced doors with plasma torches. She checked her ammunition. 3 magazines left. Probably not enough. But then when had enough ever mattered? Her communication device crackled. Admiral Daewon's voice. Captain Hana, the weapon has been redirected. Mission accomplished. Evacuate immediately. Negative, Admiral, she replied. The Draven are trying to disarm the charges. If I leave, they will succeed and this station survives. I stay to make sure it does not. That is an order, Captain. With respect, Admiral, I am deaf right now. Hana smiled. Bad connection. Cannot hear you. She heard Daewon sigh, a sound full of sadness and pride. It has been an honor, Captain. The honor was mine, she said. Now go win this war. That is my last order to you. The doors blew open and Draven soldiers poured through. Hana started firing, making every shot count. She did not expect to survive. She did not need to. She just needed to buy 5 more minutes. Outside the station, General Thane's team loaded onto the transport with Minji's survivors. The Velkari general looked back at the station, thinking about the human captain who had taught him what courage really meant. She is not coming, Minji said, seeing his expression. That was always the plan. Someone had to stay to ensure the reactor charges were not disarmed. I should have stayed, Thane said. She is your leader. I am expendable. No one is expendable, Minji corrected gently. But some of us are more willing to be spent. That is what makes us human. We choose our deaths, they do not choose us. The transport launched, fighting through debris and enemy fire to reach the fleet. Behind them, the Void Hammer fired, its reality-destroying beam lancing out toward empty space where it would harm no one. The weapon had taken 3 years to build, had cost untold resources, and it would fire exactly once at nothing. Then the reactor exploded. The blast was silent in the vacuum of space, but visible across the entire star system. The Void Hammer station came apart in an expanding sphere of energy and debris. The explosion was so massive it created a temporary gravitational distortion, pulling in nearby Draven ships and crushing them. The entire battlefield went silent for a moment. Both sides simply stopped and watched as the station died. With it went Archon Krell, the Draven High Command and the weapon that would have ended civilizations. The Draven fleet, suddenly leaderless and shocked, began to break formation. All ships press the attack, Admiral Daewon ordered, his voice heavy with grief but still steady. Do not let their sacrifice be wasted. End this now. The human Velkari fleet surged forward, exploiting the chaos. Without leadership, the Draven discipline collapsed. Ships began surrendering. Others fled into faster-than-light travel, scattering across the galaxy. Within an hour, the battle was over. 3,000 Draven warships had become wreckage or prisoners. Lieutenant Taeyang brought his damaged fighter back to the carrier, his hands shaking on the controls. He had flown for 8 straight hours, had been shot down and survived, had killed more enemies than he could count. When the medics pulled him from the cockpit, he could barely stand. Did we win? He asked. Yes, they told him. We won. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The Draven collective fractured without strong leadership, breaking into smaller factions that were more interested in survival than conquest. High Marshal Vector, working with Admiral Daewon, reached out to the moderate Draven leaders and began real peace negotiations. Dr. Yuna served as mediator, helping both sides understand each other after centuries of hatred. It was slow work. Both species had lost too much to forgive easily. But they were trying, and that was more than they had managed in 300 years. General Thane became something unexpected, a hero among both Velkari and humans. He spoke publicly about what he had learned from fighting alongside humans, about courage and sacrifice and choosing to fight even when victory seemed impossible. Young Velkari soldiers listened to his words and began training differently, thinking differently. The Velkari Council offered Admiral Daewon territory, resources, anything humanity wanted as payment for their help. He refused all of it. We did not come here for payment, Daewon said during the official ceremony. We came because it was right. Because civilizations were dying and we could stop it. The only thing we ask is that you remember this day. Remember that war has a cost, and that cost is never worth it. Remember that when you look at the stars, you are not alone. And remember that humans will be watching. If you fall into war again, if you threaten extinction again, we will return. And next time we will not be so gentle. It was both a promise and a warning. The galaxy heard both messages clearly. Monuments were built on both Velkari and Draven worlds. They listed the names of the dead from all sides, human and alien alike. Captain Hana's name was first on every human memorial, followed by the soldiers who had died buying time for victory. The Velkari added their own dead, surprised when Admiral Daywan insisted that Draven names be included too. They were soldiers following orders, Daywan explained. They fought for what they believed in. They deserved to be remembered even if they were wrong. The human fleet prepared to depart 6 months after the battle. They had stayed long enough to ensure the peace would hold, long enough to teach both sides how to solve their problems without war. Now it was time to go home. General Thane came to see Admiral Daywan off personally. The old Velkari warrior who had learned so much from the humans stood at attention and saluted. "Will you ever come back?" Thane asked. "Maybe," Daywan said, "if you need us. But I hope you will not. I hope you will build something better here, something worth protecting without our help." "We will try," Thane promised. "Captain Hana taught me that trying is sometimes all we have." The human ships departed, vanishing into faster-than-light travel and leaving the galaxy to heal. On Earth, memorials were held for the fallen. Captain Hana was buried with full military honors, her sacrifice recorded in every history book, her courage becoming legend. Years passed. The Velkari-Draven peace held, shakily at first, but growing stronger with time. Trade routes opened. Diplomatic exchanges happened. Slowly, painfully. Two civilizations that had tried to destroy each other learned to coexist. Children grew up hearing stories about the humans who had appeared from nowhere and ended the war. Some said they were myths, legends told to teach lessons about courage and sacrifice. But the older generation, the ones who had fought in that final battle, knew better. They were real, General Thane told his grandchildren, now an old warrior himself. "I fought beside them.